India's highest court rules in favor of Hindus in a long-running dispute with Muslims over a religious site. Will this end a controversy that's lasted decades, or will it inflame tensions further? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Hazem, Sika. It is one of the world's most contentious property disputes, a lightning rod for divisions between Hindus and Muslims in India. Both lay claim to a religious site in the city of Ayodhya in the country's biggest state, Uttar Pradesh. The dispute led to violence that killed 2,000 people nearly 30 years ago. Hindus believe a deity was born at the site. Muslims say they've worshipped there for centuries. Now, India's highest court has ruled unanimously that the land should be given to Hindus to build a temple with a government trust set up to manage it. Muslims will be provided with 2 hectares elsewhere in Ayodhya to build a mosque. India's Prime Minister says this verdict shouldn't be seen as a win or loss for anybody.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण मामले पर फैसला सुनाया है.
Today, the Supreme Court has ruled on an important case that has a history of hundreds of years behind it. The whole country wished that the matter should be heard in the court on a day-to-day basis, which took place, and today the decision is out.
जिस प्रकार हर वर्ग ने
Every class, every community, people of every sect, the whole country has accepted the verdict with open hearts. It reflects on the ancient culture, traditions, and sense of harmony in India.
Anchal Vohra has more now from New Delhi.
The bottom line is that the Hindu belief has won because the Supreme Court of India has ordered that a group of trustees is formed over the next 3 months, and this group of trustees is going to go about the construction of a temple for Hindu deity Ram. This is what the Hindus wanted, or many Hindus wanted, because they believe that the disputed land is the birthplace of Hindu deity Ram, and they wanted a temple there. For the Muslims, the Supreme Court has said that an alternative piece of land, about 2 hectares, should be given to them somewhere else so they could build a mosque. But the big question at the moment is, will this actually bring closure to the people of India? This has been a very divisive issue between the Hindus and the Muslims in this country for decades now, maybe even longer. Some analysts are saying that it may finally bring closure because people are just tired of talking about it and it being a hindrance in their relationships. But others say that the Muslims are disappointed. Some Muslim groups have come forward and said that they are disappointed with the verdict because they didn't quite get what they wanted. Now, all of this has happened under tight security, not just outside the Supreme Court of India, but also in Ayodhya, where the disputed site is. Thousands of security personnel were deployed there to make sure violence does not erupt. This is Anchal Vohra for Inside Story.
We'll begin our discussion shortly, but first let's look at the events which led up to the court decision. Hindus and Muslims have claimed ownership of this 1 hectare of land for centuries. Hindu groups say a temple was demolished to build a mosque in the 16th century known as Babri Masjid. In 1992, hardline Hindus who wanted to rebuild the temple tore down the mosque. It sparked communal violence across the country that killed more than 2,000 people. In 2010, High Court judges ruled the land should be divided into 3 equal parts, 1 for Muslims and 2 for Hindus. Later that year, both groups mounted a legal challenge in India's Supreme Court. It was hoped a court ruling could put an end to the feud. Well, let's bring in our guests now to talk more about this. In New Delhi, we have Kemal Farooqi, Executive Member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Joining us via Skype from Ayodhya, Vale Singh, author of Ayodhya, City of Faith, City of Discord. Also in New Delhi via Skype, Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Good to have you all with us. So, let me ask you, first of all, Vale Singh, does this decision by the Indian Supreme Court put this whole issue of the site in Ayodhya to rest then?
Well, Hassan, thanks for having me. I would like to say yes. Today, I would like to say yes, given the responses and reactions from not just the main parties in the case, but mainly the locals in Ayodhya, and that is across communities. However, I would also emphasize that it is a bit early. We have been here before, in a sense. The 2010 verdict was a way out. It was a compromise formula. Every party got 1/3 of the land, and yet we had parties filing appeals against that verdict. So, but today's is of course different because the Supreme Court has acknowledged the wrongs that have been done to the Muslim community with regard to this case, such as how the idols were planted in the mosque in 1949. It has also acknowledged the demolition of the Babri Masjid and what it led to. It has also debunked certain myths that were peddled by various groups, such as that the mosque was built after destroying a huge Grand Ram temple. So I think the Supreme Court has tried to find a balance in the verdict. There will be critique and there should be critique, but I would like to think today that this is definitely a tiny step forward.
Sanjay Hegde, what's your view on this? And has the Supreme Court sidestepped the whole issue of ownership? Who actually owns this site? They have ruled that this government trust is going to take over and build a Hindu temple on the site. But does it address the question of what it was supposed to rule on, which is who is the owner of it?
Well, the ownership had been taken over by the government long back in '93 itself. It had acquired the entire property, including these 2 acres of land. At that point of time, the Supreme Court had said, no, there is a pre-existing title dispute that would have to be decided by the High Court, and the government was to continue as a statutory receiver. The Supreme Court has today essentially continued that, saying that the government, you are the owner of the land, and you form a trust which will ultimately build the temple. In a sense, yes, there has been a sidestepping of the issue of having decided the fact that the raising of the mosque was illegal, the placing of idols on it was illegal. It did not give consequential relief to the Muslim side. Now that you can look at it in more ways than one. To some, it might appear cowardice. To some, it might appear statesmanship. And to others, it might also be just the Supreme Court giving vent to the ordinary Indian's feeling that it is time to turn the page on this chapter, put an end to this sorry chapter, and move on as a country. Because just let's suppose that it had directed that a mosque be rebuilt on that site. I've had pretty high-ranking people among the Muslim clergy saying that we know that if a judgment like that comes, it would be pretty impossible to actually implement on the ground. There would be other repercussions all over the country. They also knew that they could not, in good conscience, within the tenets of their religion, surrender the land. So maybe one way of looking at it is that the Supreme Court has taken upon itself the duty and also the opprobrium of just coming up with a solution that everybody knows is a workable solution that will endure. The legal basis of it, the legal reasoning of it, the logic behind the decision, that's for us men of law to chew over, mull over, write theses. But the bottom line in which the country is interested is this. It's time possibly to put an end to a sorry chapter which has bedeviled our politics forever and ever. Maybe as a country we can find peace with this kind of compromise.
Kamal Farooqi, let me get your take on this. And I know this was not the decision that you had hoped for, but does it put the issue to rest? Do you accept their judgment?
Yeah, as far as the accepting or not accepting the judgment is concerned, please understand that we have been time and again telling that Supreme Court is the final authority, and we respect Honorable Supreme Court. We were also encouraged by the saying of the CJI also, when it has been said that we will be deciding not the matter of the faith, which is called Astha, but we will be looking into the title suit itself. And the title suit will be decided on the basis of facts and figures. Now, having said this, the Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court has said that the masjid was in existence for 528 years and the prayers were going on. It was demolished. It was demolished by the people, in fact, and still more than 100 cases, criminal cases are pending about various important personalities who were responsible for demolishing the Babri Masjid. It has been said by the Honorable Court, today's order, that the ASI has not been in a position to say anything whether the masjid was constructed after demolishing the mandir, but that's a fact of the life that masjid was in existence for 528 years. Then it is also stated by the Honorable Supreme Court that the other parties were only interested in the chabutra outside the masjid, in fact, wherein it is called the Sita Rasoi, and the prayers were going on over there as far as that chabutra is concerned. But absolutely it was incorrect that the prayers of Hindus were also going on in the masjid before that fateful night of December 1949, wherein the idols of Sri Ram and Sita ji was unscrupulously brought in from outside and put it in the main domain, main sanctum of Babri Masjid. And this was reported in an FIR by the sub-inspector of the police over there. And by the way, he was not a Muslim. He himself was a non-Muslim, and he said it, that two idols were surreptitiously brought in, all those kinds. This all are the facts of life, and nobody has denied it. That the kind of demolition activities and all those kind have been done. But we were expecting that Honorable Supreme Court will be passing the judgment on the basis of these hard facts of life, which they themselves have been saying it even now in the order. But the Supreme Court chose a very different path, in fact, maybe because of they were finding it that it will not be possible to pass the judgment otherwise. But they took an extreme step of Article 142, wherein the Supreme Court can pass a judgment on the basis of other than what actually has been stated by me just now. But these are some of the powers which are being used in a very different situation. But now the judgment, in fact, has not said anything about what has been said by me earlier, but has used their extreme powers under Article 142, which definitely is a kind of sorry state of affair, and the Muslims of the country are feeling deprived of the opportunity of getting the just order on the basis of the facts and figures of the case. But having said all these kind of things, we have been maintaining that in the interest of the keeping the peace, we respect Honorable Supreme Court.
All right.
Supreme Court may also commit certain mistakes, because ultimately it is so. All those kind of things. Today we are sad that the judgment has not been done on the basis of the facts of the case, but it's more on the astha, and it's more on the using of the extraordinary powers available to the judiciary under Article 142.
Vale Singh, you're talking to us, of course, from Ayodhya. How do you gauge the mood there right now? This is a place where the atmosphere has often been tense for many years over the future of this site and what's to be done with it. There were a lot of security measures that were put in place by the Indian authorities in anticipation of this decision by the Supreme Court. But it does seem that whatever violence that was feared to erupt has not happened. I mean, how do you gauge the atmosphere there among all the groups there?
Well, firstly, Hassan, I would like to say that there are shades and there are nuances on every side. So nobody should feel that, or nobody should think that they represent or theirs is the only view or the dominant view. So among Muslims, there are shades of views. So as I said, that the common working class Muslim living in Ayodhya, and it is a tiny minority, mind you, they are just fatigued, and so is the average Hindu. They're fatigued with the dispute. They're fatigued with the complete sort of obsession about this dispute and this town, and it's become synonymous. And they have been waiting for some sort of closure. So in today's verdict, there is some sort of closure. Now, yes, it could be criticized that Muslims never asked for a 5-acre plot in return. But I will tell you after my conversations here that what Muslims would like to know today or tomorrow in the coming days is if this 5-acre plot of land would be, or as you say, 2 hectare, would be in Ayodhya. Would it be in actual Ayodhya of today as it is, where all the temples are, where the mosque stood, or will it be a loose interpretation of Ayodhya because in 2018 the administrative definition of Ayodhya was sort of changed to make it a larger jurisdiction administrative area. So these are the kind of things let's say the Muslims are, one of the things that the Muslims are thinking about. And I have to say that the Hindus, the monks, and it's a monk town. Essentially, it's a pilgrim town. There are hundreds of temples there, and it is a town which sees pilgrims from around throughout the year, and they have been restrained, and it is commendable. I should say it is commendable. And there were one or two instances of some kind of boisterous celebration, and they were instantly clamped down. I mean, police intervened and they asked people to not do that, not provoke the other side, keeping in mind this is not a victory or a loss. And I have to say that I think your anchor said that the bottom line is that this is the Hindus believe that they have won. But I would like to say and remind us all that it is a victory. It might be a victory, but then it is a victory that is tempered by the hard truths, which for the first time that the court has acknowledged that the idols were illegally placed, that the demolition was tragic and illegal, and it nearly destroyed the social fabric of India. And those kind of things we need to remember. So if somebody is celebrating, they need to remember these things, that it is the means also, of what you're celebrating and how you achieve that. I think it's a somber day for India. I think we should all remember that, we have to move on from here and not backwards. And a lot of that depends also on what happens in the following weeks and months by the government, what the governments do.
Sanjay Hegde, I want to point out, I want to ask about one of the legal contradictions that's been pointed out here in this ruling, because there are criminal charges against the BJP figures in the party of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In 2017, India's Supreme Court ordered that the co-founder of the party, L.K. Advani, and others be tried for criminal conspiracy in the demolition of the Babri Mosque back in 1992 that sparked all the violence. But now the Supreme Court has essentially ruled, hasn't it, that the temple they wanted built is now going to be built.
Yes, that contradiction exists, but that exists in this judgment itself. The judgment acknowledges that what happened in 1992 was an affront to the rule of law. Now, how do you restore the rule of law? By necessarily ordering a restoration of the status quo ante, or punishing those who violated the rule of law, and equally redressing the basic concerns in a manner that such infractions do not happen in the future. This, frankly, is a judgment which seeks to do a very delicate balancing act. Whether it succeeds or whether it falls between two stools, only time will tell. For today, however, India is relieved that the judgment has been reasonably well received all over, that we can look forward to healing, shutting this chapter, and moving on to a more peaceful India. Whether that peace is necessarily an enforced piece of majoritarianism, and whether that is good for India, that again, I'd let the judgment of history write it after some time.
All right, let's put that then to Kamal Farooqi. Is this judgment ultimately going to be good for India?
It should be. I personally feel and pray that it should be good for the country. But even in the judgment itself, it has been said that, and we have the people in the Sangh Parivar who have got a list of more than 400 masjid across the country, who they say that this is our next target. Though there is a law in the country wherein it is being safeguarded that no further mosque will be touched or no other religious will be touched like this, but still the people have been making these claims time and again, and some of them are the member of parliaments also, and they are not doing it in private. They have got the printed material for that also. So whether it will be the beginning of this, what we are talking at, Sanjay Bhai was saying that perhaps people are relieved for today, but will it be used against the other religious places, or there is an end to it? There is no clear-cut guidance, and even the Sangh Parivar, RSS chief, has said that we have no control over the people. In fact, we only can eat the people, but we don't have the control. But so who has got the control over these people? Will it?
But do you take heart? I want to ask you: do you take heart from the fact that the court did acknowledge the rights of Muslims over this land, and it did say that no temple was destroyed to build the mosque, and it's giving alternate land to Muslims in Ayodhya?
Yeah, again, I'm saying that these are some of the facts which the court itself has acknowledged in the order itself. But the bottom line is that where is the relief? The relief is all those kind of things. The relief is only one thing, which is the commitment on our part that we respect the Honorable Supreme Court and we are respecting the judgment. But whatever has been said in the judgment itself, but it really gives something to the oppressed party who has been targeted for saying that the masjid was established after demolishing mandir, which is wrong. Which has been said that the Muslims were praying in the masjid up to December 1949. All those kinds of things are there, and it was demolished. The criminal cases are there. All these things are a matter of record. But the end result is that the court has said that 5 acres of land would be given. But they forget that as far as the Muslims are concerned, we are not in a position to barter the masjid. It's gone, it's gone. The Supreme Court decided, fine. You have decided. So that should be the end of the matter. But that will be a part of the history now.
Valet Singh, how should we view this then in the context of the increased religious tensions that we've seen in India since Narendra Modi became Prime Minister in 2014? Because this was, of course, a key campaign pledge that he made in his re-election bid this year.
I mean, not really. The construction of a Ram temple at Ayodhya has been on the manifesto of the ruling party for several years, even before Prime Minister Modi became the Prime Minister. So I wouldn't like to heap everything about India and its future onto this verdict today, because I sense that the youth especially and a lot of people are fatigued. And frankly, I think the response has been mature. Outside TV debates and outside TV discussions, the response has been mature. The average Indian is really, really worried about the core issues of economy and unemployment. This is a major factor, and it is a sort of an attempt for closure. It has enough to be critiqued about, but as I say, that I think in Ayodhya itself, the common people are in a sense relieved. There is some skepticism. There is an attitude of wait and watch. Even a lot of Hindus will tell you there is nothing to celebrate today. Let the construction begin.
All right.
Even Hindus are skeptical.
On that note, we've got to leave it. Thank you to all of you, Kamal Farooqi, Valet Singh, and Sanjay Hegde. Thanks very much for being on Inside Story. And thank you, as always, for watching. And remember, you can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, you can go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/ facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle there is @AJ Inside Story. For me, Hazem, Sika, and the whole team here, bye for now.